Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today. Her name is Stephanie Lindamood, and Stephanie is with KW in Fort Worth, Dallas area. So welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And first, I want to congratulate you on your show celebrating 1 year. So I just wanted to shout out to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm beyond thrilled that, that was my goal to really make it to 1 year. And then I was going to see, do I keep going or not? And now I'm like, I can't imagine not talking to people. I met so many wonderful people through the show that I'm like addicted. So we'll keep going. So Stephanie, if you don't mind kicking off things by telling us a little bit about yourself, your journey through the real estate world, and what you do now.
Sure, absolutely. So I graduated college back in '04 and got my first job in new construction sales in January of '05. Mm-hmm. And I was in new construction sales for a builder here in Dallas, Fort Worth for about 3 years through the end of 2008. And during that time, I sold probably a little over 300 homes. We were super high volume. I know. Super high volume, sold a lot of homes, and really it was creating systems and processes and just very good training program. And I love sales and I love real estate. So I did that, and then was in a situation where, we were starting to feel the recession quite a bit. And my husband and I were both selling new construction, and I was driving like 70 miles one way to my neighborhood, and just got to a point where I decided that I wanted to take a step back and do something else for a little bit. And so I actually got into retail management, and then I went into IT sales, and I really wanted to get back into real estate, but I was just waiting for the market to get a little more stabilized. Mm-hmm. And so in 2013, I got my real estate license, and then in 2014, went ahead and got back into the industry. And so when I got back into the industry, I decided I wanted to come in on the realtor side versus the new construction side. Even though I had a love for that, my husband still sells new construction, and just wanted something a little bit different for myself. And so now that I'm on this side, and I've been doing that since 2014, I still work with a lot of my builder partners. And so I still get that new home sales interaction, but I get to help clients on the sell side of this side of real estate. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people have an idea that like the realtor side can be so much easier. So I like making a transition myself into it recently. I certainly know that it's not the case. So it's definitely challenging. So what would you say like the biggest challenges that people don't realize when they transition from the builder to the retail side?
So I would definitely say there's a lot. So partially, like just in general, like when you work for a builder, you do have to run that neighborhood and manage it as an entrepreneur, but you still have a marketing department you can go to a lot of times, and you still have, a manager or construction, and you have a team around you, and you don't necessarily have to build that team. It's built for you by the company, and they're your support. And when you're in real estate, you're completely self-employed. And so what I find a lot of new construction sales will think is they'll see what I do and they go, oh my gosh, I want a little bit more flexibility. I want to do what I want to do. Well, guess what? I still work nights and weekends. I actually take Thursday, Friday off, and I work Saturday through Wednesday. And when clients want to meet, it's from 5 to 7. I mean, I was at a listing appointment the other night till 10 o'clock, mainly because we had bad weather and we had to delay an appointment. But it's still very similar in hours to my new construction days. And so one thing that, I think a lot of salespeople think is, well, I love real estate and I can go sell homes. And if you're really good at that, that's great. But guess what? When you get home, you have marketing to do and you have administrative things. And if you don't want to do those things, guess what? Now you have to go out and hire those. And so what a lot of people don't understand is when they get into real estate, they're having to not only do the sales part, which a lot of them are very, very passionate about, but they're going to have to run their business as well. And so that tends to take a toll in addition to just the expenses. I was running some budgets the other day, and my husband and I were looking at the numbers, and it's like, it costs me X amount of dollars just to work for myself. So I better make that money versus going into a model home every day and getting to expense things and getting to, use the company's computers and printers and that kind of thing. So it is a trade-off.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up the whole marketing department. So there's always, conversation between who's in charge of marketing, because a lot of times with some builders, salespeople are doing marketing, and is that like, should they be doing marketing or should they really rely on the marketing department? And how the two sometimes don't talk to each other. So you don't see that, kind of a symphony of what should be happening, because salespeople know what they want to say, but they're not necessarily good at marketing, and marketing people are great at marketing, but they don't necessarily know what's going on. So they really need to communicate. I always emphasize how important that communication is, but you're so 100% right that when you are out there on your own as a realtor, then the marketing falls completely on you. So one of the great things that you've done is you've been able to brand yourself. So the way I reached out to Stephanie was through LinkedIn, because I kept seeing Stephanie's posts and I was just blown away by the branding that you did. So from your hair to your posts, to the videos, to the font that you use, I just think that's genius. And so if you don't mind talking a little bit about the branding, did you come up with it on your own? Is somebody helping you? And why do you think branding is important? Because clearly you're killing it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. So I went to school for business. I don't feel like I'm frankly, that creative of a person. So the creation is really hard for me. I have done it all myself. A lot of it is studying what I like. So what I'm really good at is taking a look or a concept and improving upon it. So what I try to do is I'll go on Pinterest or I'll go on Instagram or other sites, and I see what I like, and then I look at it and go, okay, how could I do something similar but with my style? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I've had to learn, okay, pick a couple colors, because I'm all over the map. I mean, one day I could like black and white and red, and then tomorrow it's leopard print. And so for me, I've had to learn, okay, to have a cohesive look, we need to stick with the same color palette. We do need to stick with similar fonts. And so that really helps me because it gives me clarity, but it requires me to sit down and plan. And I think that's one of the biggest things that as an entrepreneur, whether you're in new home sales or you're a realtor, is so much of us are on and we want to make the sale, and that makes us feel successful. But there's a certain percentage of our time that we've got to stop and plan. And if we don't do that, then we're going to live in a constant state of being reactive, right? So from a marketing standpoint, there's some days where, yes, I get up and go, oh my gosh, I need to post something. What do I post today? My goal though is to get to a point, and I'm actually working on this right now, sitting down and saying, okay, what's a monthly plan for social media or for branding? What's an annual plan for communication with past clients or ads or that kind of thing? Because you get to a point where you can't be reactionary anymore. And so what I've really tried to focus on is not putting something out there if I don't feel it's my best. So if I need to skip a day on Instagram or I need to skip a day on LinkedIn, instead of putting something out that's fuzzy or grainy or something like that, I'll wait until I can get something that I feel really good about, that's professional, I feel is professional looking, and get it out there, because it's perception. Perception is reality. And if it looks like I'm in a hurry or I halfway did it, then what are they going to think about when I go meet with the client, how I'm prepared? And so it translates into every aspect of your business, I feel like.
Love it. So all those things you're saying resonate so much with me. So, and I think there's been definitely a shift in social media, the way we use social media and what is expected. So in the past, I think the philosophy was more so, if you want the followers and you want the numbers and the likes, you need to post, it was like 5 times a day or something crazy. And so it was all about quantity of the posts that you were making, versus now, I think it's more about the quality of your posts. So even if you're only posting once a day, you should really think very clearly about what that post is going to be, because that is your chance to impress people and to get interaction from your clients and to really get engagement. So yes, it's so important to be mindful instead of posting frequently and stuff that doesn't get any attention, because the way Instagram and Facebook works is if nobody's interacting with your posts, then they're going to stop seeing your posts altogether, versus putting something thoughtful out there that is actually engaging and even if it's one post a day, people will actually see that next time because they are responding to your post by liking it, commenting, and etc. So
right. No, totally agree. And the other point to make about that is, you know, having a platform that you own. So one of the biggest things is it's great if you're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, or there's probably going to be something new next year. But what if they turn that off tomorrow? Or what if that following your account gets hacked or something happens? So I like to have, you know, my blog to where I can point people that way. I own that space. But then if I want to post on Instagram and link back to my blog, great, because then you're really utilizing the platforms that you own versus you're dependent on who Instagram serves your ads or your post to, right? And so if I'm going to spend all this time working on content, I want to be able to control who sees it, where they go, and if something crashes tomorrow, I own the site and they can come back to me and see my stuff and my content.
absolutely, 100% true. So even if you are not a realtor and you're working for a builder, you could still start your own blog and think about the content that you could post out there that's going to attract your ideal customer. So whether it's, you know, 10 things to know about new construction or 10 biggest mistakes, whatever it could be, that could be housed on your blog, and then just link from the blog directly to Instagram, Facebook, etc. But that way the content lives somewhere else. And especially, I mean, we've talked about evergreen content before, but it's going to continue to drive traffic continuously to you. And that's how you're going to get referrals as well. So that's definitely a really, really true point that you made. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Instagram is all the rage right now. You know, next year, who knows? It's going to be new Snapchat or something else that's better.
Right, right. And the other thing too is, you know, there's some builders out there or organizations in general that they may not want their employees posting as an employee, right? So you may have a builder X that says, look, we have a builder X Facebook page, but we don't want our employees or sales counselors to actually have, and I'm dating myself here, but when I was in new home sales, I don't think we had Facebook, but we didn't have Instagram, and we didn't have, I don't even think Pinterest was around. And so we didn't even have some of these options. Mm-hmm. And so some of the marketing departments are trying to rein it in a little bit because they want control over the messaging, which I totally get, because they need to make sure logos are correct and branding colors. And from a liability standpoint, especially when you're posting prices of homes and upgrades and that kind of thing, but you could still market yourself. And not to say that you're not going to be with your builder next year, but you know, my husband's worked for a couple of builders where they've bought each other, they've sold each other. So he didn't necessarily move on, but they change names. And so you don't know next year if your builder's going to get bought or sold or what have you. So maybe your name is something specific to your area or your profession versus the builder or neighborhood you're in, because as we all know, when you're in new construction sales, you're not in the same neighborhood usually forever. You're going to move on, but you don't necessarily have to lose that following. So if you've built relationships with realtors in the area or clients you've worked with, then you want to be able to take them with you. So if you brand yourself something more general, as far as something where they can follow you regardless of where you go, then you can take that with you, and you don't necessarily have to worry about the liability of your company's marketing department worrying about how you're showing up and representing them.
Absolutely, 100%. And so it goes back to thinking about yourself as a brand as opposed to just your company as a brand.
Exactly.
You're your own brand. So one of the things that is smart to do if you haven't done it in a while is think about your Facebook, think about Instagram, any social media that you're on, and think about when customers look at it for the first time through the customer's eyes. So I always like to audit mine, you know, going back and checking to see, like, what did I post? Does it represent what I want people to think about me? And I think millennials are especially good at it right now because they are creating this personal brand on social media, and they're really posting what resonates with them and how they want people to perceive them. So I think that's like true definition of personal branding with millennials. But you know, older generations who are not necessarily native to the whole online social media experience and adopting it now may not be as familiar with that concept. So it's always a good idea to audit it, see how you're presenting yourself on social media, And if you're feeling not so sure about it, better is to delete it, because you know what, whatever's out there, it's going to stay out there. And it's just, again, goes back to how people view you. And oftentimes you only have one chance to make the first impression. So for sure. Okay. So speaking of branding, and you guys, you definitely should check out Stephanie's hair. Love the whole look. So I've always wanted to cut my hair short, so I don't know if I have the balls to do it, but maybe someday I will. But love your hair. So I think anything from how you're representing yourself personally to your website and your social media, you're doing a really great job. So if somebody wants to check out your stuff to see what you're doing, what's the best way to connect with you on social?
Yeah, so right now, and I'm sure anyone in real estate can appreciate this, because of the rules we have with, like, if I want to do a just listed ad or something like that, I've got to put broker name and all that kind of stuff. And so right now I'm running with 2 separate handles, 2 separate sites. So from a real estate perspective, if you want to check me out, I can be found under StephanieLindamoodRealEstate.com. It'll also go to The Glam Life of Real Estate, and that's where I show up on Instagram, is The Glam Life of Real Estate. And then if you want to check out my lifestyle blog, which is going to be more, productivity, fashion, beauty, that kind of stuff, it's going to incorporate things about being an entrepreneur, you can go to theglamgirlboss.com, and that's where you can also find me on Instagram.
Great. Thank you so much. So let's transition a little bit and shift gears, and let's talk about the market, since you're out there selling a ton of homes and working with buyers. We realtors tend to see more so than insulated communities shifts that are happening in the market and what's going on. So what are you seeing right now in the Dallas area?
Yeah, so in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, one of the things I specialize in is listing property and then working with clients when they're buying with a builder. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is just in general, the listing numbers are raising a little bit. What I mean by that is days on market are increasing a little bit. The levels of inventory are up about 22% from this time compared to last year. And so what we're finding is sellers are getting a little bit more nervous about, hey, why is it taking so long to sell my home? I'm not selling it for necessarily what I thought, because in DFW, we've had about a 50% run up in price in the last 5 to 6 years, which for our market is pretty unprecedented. Usually in Texas, we were going at about 3 or 4% a year, bumping along just fine. And so we've been a little bit more of an immature market in that regard. So we've seen a lot of changes here recently. And so I would say the number one issue we're seeing is a lack of affordability. So if the average incomes are X and the average price is here, where there's a lot of, frankly, the builder prices are a little bit higher than that. So we're seeing a lot of clients having to really be selective of where they're buying. They're having to be mindful of property taxes. Is the neighborhood in a pit or a mud, which are additional taxes from a property standpoint. And so they're just having to really look at it, because what we're finding is the affordability is just becoming more of an issue.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a trend that we're seeing in a lot of parts of the country. And it seems like we're definitely in a shifting market currently. So I think it always starts with California and the talk of a shifting market, and then rolls over to the East Coast. So similarly to you here in Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia area, again, the market is very pocketed here. So we still have areas where I'm seeing multiple offers, and people bidding $30,000, $50,000 over asking on a $300,000 house, and still not getting the house. And at the same time, I'm seeing higher end inventory that is spending more time on the market, at $1 million plus range. Definitely, double and triple digit numbers that are spending time on the market. So it's very interesting how in the same local area, it is very much neighborhood, and even a type of a home that, is going to demand different price, different days on the market. So I am seeing a lot of baby boomers right now trying to find ranch style homes, which are very hard to come by in our area. So anytime something comes on the market with that, it's like done. So
yeah, and to your point, we're seeing the same as far as if I list a home in the 170s, under 200, it's 20 offers or 20 showings that weekend, 4 to 5 offers. It's going usually over list. Once we get into that 300 plus range, days on market are increasing, and there's just a little bit more competition because more of our builders now are in that $300 to $500 price point, and so they're new construction is now competing with the pre-owned, and if you can buy new for the same price as pre-owned, you're going to if you can, and so that's some of what we're seeing. So the builders I'm finding that are more in the 250s, they're really able to capitalize on the buyers out there because that's where the market is looking for housing.
Mm-hmm. So being a realtor and working with both people who are interested in buying new construction, as well as I'm sure you do some resales, what do you see generally that is maybe surprising to you that people are not aware of when it comes to new construction? Because I think oftentimes as a new home salesperson, we're so on our own island, and because we deal with it every single day, we can become almost like desensitized to like simple things that people just have no idea about. So what are some of the conversations that you're having with your buyers about new construction, and what surprises you the most that people are just not aware of?
Sure. So one of the things that seems to be being a conversation piece now, even though the process and market hasn't really changed, is buyers are not aware, or they're just thinking they can trade their home in and buy the new home and it's going to be seamless. And I think a lot of it, honestly, is just from this convenience world that we live in. I can order something on Amazon and it shows up tomorrow on my doorstep, or today even. And so we just kind of expect that in different areas of our life. And so what I've seen mostly is, you've got the rise of what we would call the iBuyer. So you've got different companies, organizations that are offering to purchase homes, and the builders love it initially because they're like, ooh, this helps with our contingency, which a contingency is when you have a buyer buying the new home that has a home to sell, and they have to sell their home to qualify for the new home. And so when the builder has a contingency, that's an added risk on that transaction, because if they don't sell the home, then they can't buy their new home. So basically these companies are coming in, these investors essentially, and saying, hey, we'll buy their home for them, and then they can pick when they move, and they can move into your home and mitigate any kind of moving twice, costs, fees, work, that kind of thing. But what's happening is, okay, this is just the same as the guaranteed buys were 10, 12 years ago. It's an investor. They can't give you market value. But the problem is a lot of them are advertising that. They're comparing it to a new or traditional sale. So what's happening, we're seeing a lot of, is our clients are getting these quotes. They're looking at the quote. They're either shocked at the number they're getting because they know what their neighbor sold for because it's all public, or they're getting a teaser quote and then they're moving it toward the process and they're getting their final number closer in, and it's not anything close to what it was after repairs and negotiations and things like that. Because what they don't understand is those companies aren't representing them. They think they are. They surveyed people and they said, who represented you during this transaction? They're like, oh, the company that bought my home. But they're not. They're representing themselves. And so what I'm finding is the builder partners are thinking, oh, this will take care of our contingencies. They're not realizing that they're basically sending them to a company that's going to be lowballing the offer, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that as long as the client knows it. And I think there's a breakdown in them understanding that this offer is going to be lower than market. So then the clients think, oh, well, I have this low offer. I really don't want to move twice. And they're not understanding that it's not like trading in a car. Like if you want the top dollar on your home, to have an agent help you and to represent you and to negotiate on your behalf, it's just like saying, hey, I don't want to gain weight to get pregnant. And unfortunately, that's something you got to do if you want to go through that process. And so that's one thing we're having to re-educate everybody on is, look, if you send your clients that way, you've got to let them know they're not going to get market value. Otherwise, they're going to be mad at you. And then the client's got to know, hey, you got to be willing to take a hit on the house. And if you are, that's fine. Most of the clients I talk to, they're trying to net every nickel out of their house because they're trying to afford the new home or pay off debt in the process so that they can get into their new home with as little financial stress as possible. So that's one of the major things that we're seeing as a disruptor in the marketplace. The iBuyers are usually converting 1 out of 10 clients. And so what I tell my builder partners and my clients are, if they were really offering market value and are saving you moving twice, they'd be converting at the 85% that I convert at when I meet with a client. And so that's why I think it's a cycle. We're going to see it. It happens in real estate. We've been on a good run here. And so we're looking at the shift as kind of a positive in the sense of it's going to get all these disruptors out. It's going to get all the agents that are selling 2 to 3 homes a year, because that also confuses clients because they think Susie from church is going to help them sell their home when she does 3 or 4 homes a year, which is fine. But when you're in a shifting market, you've got to have an agent that knows the market and does this day in and day out. And so that's just some of the things that we see every day.
I love that. So it sounds like you've kind of positioned yourself as your value proposition working with the builders is to really help them, help their clients sell the home and get the top dollar and actually work with an expert and not just somebody who's going to lowball them and essentially almost like take advantage of, not take advantage of them. Again, if they know that they're getting lowballed, that's fine. But I think a lot of them don't realize after fees, et cetera, what it's going to look like. And they think like, oh, it's the hassle to fix up my house, to do this or that. But at the end of the day, you as an expert can recommend those things. You can work with clients to actually help them, guide them through those things. And the amount of money that they can get could be substantially higher and make a huge difference in people's lives.
Exactly.
Especially after that whole downturn where everyone was pretty much in a negative. And now finally we're, seeing people have some equity in the home. So it's nice to be able to actually pull that out and use that. So love that. So I guess you guys, the takeaway from the conversation about these guaranteed buys, and I'm sure you're probably seeing something similar depending on where you are in the country. And, with all the tech companies getting into the business and their money, we're going to see more and more of them buying up properties. And it's going to be interesting to see like the proportion of those companies owning real estate and what they're going to do with that in the future. But definitely good ideas to maybe create those partnerships with your local real estate agents who know what they're doing so that they can bring true value to your clients and help them through this transaction.
The other thing I'll say real quick, if you don't mind, is again, some of our builder partners don't understand this or realize it's happening, is these companies are basically taking the information from the client, right? So they're taking their information, they're a lead source now. A lot of times they're selling that lead. So even if they don't convert them, they're selling them to other agents that are paying for the leads, or if they've got their own agents. So then those agents are contacting those leads of the builders. And then they're saying, hey, we'll help you go find a home. Or if you buy from this particular company, we'll give you more on your trade-in, or we'll discount the new home that you're buying through our little MLS system. And what's happening is they're not loyal to the builder. And so what we do, that I do with my team, my business partner, is when we work with a builder, that especially if we're in a referral situation, we're loyal to that builder partner. So we're not taking them anywhere else. We're not trying to distract the buyer and take them anywhere else or do anything else. But what the builders don't realize is they're just handing over those leads.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you guys listening to this, that's definitely a good conversation to have with your realtor partners, and really almost like do kind of a quick interview process before you send your client to a guaranteed buy that you think is going to be an easy way out. Really take the time to interview some of the top agents in your area and see who can really bring the most value to your clients in this situation. Yes, absolutely. And I think, again, going forward, we're probably going to see that more and more happening. So very, very important to be educated on it and know that what you see is not always what you get. So all right, great. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to make it in today, and it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I feel like you're really positioned yourself so great in the market and differentiated yourself from all the other realtors. And again, when I was checking out your post, it really stood out to me, the genius branding behind what you do. So, and I don't believe that you're not a creative person at all. So, and one of the things, I've noticed is that you do use a lot of professional photos. So can you talk a little bit about that? I know, it can be costly to do the professional photos, but how often do you do them? What's the inspiration behind, where do you do them, to give some of us ideas if we're looking to incorporate more pictures into our blogs, into our posts, because obviously, again, pictures worth 1,000 words. And we see that if you are using images, your blog readability goes up significantly versus no images.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about Pinterest, right? So if I took my iPhone out, or even if you list property and you have your iPhone, are you going to do that with your property for your listings? Or are you going to have a professional photographer go in and make the home look like a page off a magazine with HDR technology, right? So when we list a home, I have staging done, I have professional photos done. So I want to show up just like my homes do in that regard. And so I do have a photographer, and it depends on the season and the quarter, but basically for a while, I was going every other week. And It's partially with my current blog, The Glam Girl Boss, and then my real estate. So I have, in my mind, I've got two separate brains in this regard, because there's some things like whether it's fitness related or fashion or that kind of stuff that I want to capture. But a lot of that stuff I can repurpose over on real estate, because in all fairness, it's great talking about real estate, but sometimes people want to hear about something else, right? And so it allows me to build a little bit of personality into my brand. So whether it's with my dogs or with my husband or something like that. So what I try to do is before a shoot is I try to, instead of trying to make the pictures match my topics, I try to think about, okay, what are things that I'm going to want to cover? So I'll give you an example. I know that I'm going to want to be doing some finance topics. So like today on Instagram, on my real estate Instagram, I posted something about compound interest, because I said, look, so many of the sellers I work with want to tap into their equity. What if they could get a chunk of change and not have to sell their biggest asset, right? If you're 20 years old and you invest $100 a paycheck, $200 a month, $2,400 a year at 7% growth after 50 years at $200 a month, you're going to end up with $1.something million. Okay. Yep. Your net investment was $120,000. Well, no, people don't realize this, right? So if you can educate them on little things like that. So the point about the pictures is, in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I do something finance related, how does that show up as a photo? Is it me sitting at a desk with Starbucks and on a calculator? Is it me writing a checkbook? Is it me sitting looking at my iPad? And so when we go on these shoots, I've usually got my laptop, I got my iPad, I've got my phone, as far as trying to do some things that are going to be able to be represented as more business related. Mm-hmm. And then I try to think through, okay, what are some posts that would correlate to that? And then if I want to wear something fun, usually it's always still going to be work appropriate though. It'll be fine. And so that's kind of what I do. There's a couple different town centers in DFW, and so we'll go there. So to me, I want a cohesive look. So I like more of the white background. And so there's a shopping center that has like the whites and that kind of thing. But it's a lot. I mean, you got to go at a certain time of day because of the sun. If it's raining, it's no good. And so there's just different things that you think through. If you want to do book topics, like what books you're reading, as far as recommending that to your clients, you could go take photos in a bookstore. So a lot of it's just, seeing your personality and seeing what you do. I've taken photos with my dogs, because all my sellers have dogs, and half the time they're like, hey, I love my dogs more than my kids. And so if I can connect on that level, so it's all about building connection and authenticity. But if it's not authentic to you, people are going to be able to tell.
I agree. So you guys, this past week, I was in Nashville for Home Builder Tech Conference. And one of the things when we were talking about brands was building like a mood board. It's almost like your inspiration board that you have, with your ideas, what you want to see in your life, but it's colors that you're going to use, things that you gravitate towards, so that next time you're doing a post, again, looking at those colors and seeing, does that represent who I am, the fonts, etc. And what they recommended doing is actually creating what I am and what I am not, so that you can very easily distinguish between the ideas that you should or should not pursue. So write out things that you think represent you, and then also take the things that you think do not represent you. So the verbs, the adjectives that describe who you are as a personality. So I thought that that was really interesting. So then next time you're thinking about chasing that, shiny object, or going after something, or doing a post, you can very easily see, does that represent me or does that not represent me? So I thought that was really helpful tip that I took away from the conference, is related to branding specifically. So
yeah, and if you want to start just simple, honestly, do a photo shoot wearing a black outfit and a white outfit. Because then if you get into some of the graphic tools, you can cut out your background. You could add just that to your, just listed post. But if you just do white and black, just starting out with, easy. And then it can go with anything. If your colors are red or turquoise or whatever, it'll go with that, and you can use that year round. And so you want to get some things that aren't real loud, because then if you've got other pictures or house photos with it, it starts to look a little busy. But if that's what you want to start with that, I mean, I follow some agents where they post a lot of cool real estate marketing content, but they're literally in the same 3 outfits every single time. And so it's you could totally go that route too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's a good tip. You can always start with one photo shoot and see how that goes. You don't have to do every other week, but that's got to be so much fun. So I'm a little jealous of you for that. So, well, you guys, if you want to connect more with Stephanie, I definitely I would check out her blog, and I will link to the blog as well as all the social media information on the show notes. So be sure to go like and of course follow. Thank you so much for being on today. I really, really appreciate your time. Again, I'm just so impressed by the branding that you've done, and it's so refreshing to see somebody coming from new construction side and killing it on the retail side. As I personally know, it is definitely not easy. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope we get to see each other soon again.
Thank you so much. It was fun.